Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. The Afghan government says the Daulat Shah district in the northern Faryab province has fallen to the Taliban. A provincial council member said the security forces have evacuated the district after heavy clashes with the Taliban. This comes a day after the Taliban took control of a key district in western Ghor province. NATO Chief General Stoltenberg says the alliance is looking into the possibility of training Afghan forces in other countries after the withdrawal. In an interview, Stoltenberg said NATO will remain committed to Afghan peace but not militarily. Earlier, Central Command Head General Kenneth McKenzie said the US has completed about half of its withdrawal. In Canada's Ontario province, 4 members of a Pakistani origin Muslim family have been killed and a child injured after a man hit them with a truck. Police arrested a 20-year-old suspect and called the attack a premeditated hate crime. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Islamophobia has no place in any of their communities. Calling it an act of terrorism, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan urged the international community to counter the growing Islamophobia in the West. India's COVID-19 death toll has topped 350,000 after 2,100 people died overnight. New cases in the country have fallen below the 100,000 mark for the first time in 68 days, with over 87,000 new infections. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 56 deaths and nearly 1,400 COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours. While globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.7 million lives and infected over 173 million people so far. Well, these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Afghanistan, where the government says the Daulat Shah district in the northern Faryab province has fallen to the Taliban. A provincial council member said the security forces have evacuated the districts after heavy clashes with the Taliban. This comes a day after the Taliban took control of a key district in western Ghor province. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim to have killed 8 Afghan soldiers and conquered a checkpost in Logar province. A Taliban spokesman said a fighter was also killed in the clashes in the Paktab Shane area. Afghanistan is witnessing a surge in violence amid withdrawal of US and NATO forces from the war-torn country. Now, NATO says it may train Afghan soldiers in other countries after the withdrawal of forces. In an interview, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said NATO will remain committed to Afghan peace but not militarily. Stoltenberg also called on US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at the Pentagon. Stoltenberg said the alliance will continue to provide support to the Afghans with continued civilian presence. Meanwhile, Austin said Washington remained committed to assisting NATO partners in Afghanistan despite troops pullout. He said the ongoing withdrawal of forces from the country by September is proceeding well. Earlier, Central Command Head General Kenneth McKenzie said the US has completed about half of its withdrawal. Now, 4 members of a Pakistani origin Muslim family have been killed after a man hit them with a truck in Canada's Ontario province. The victims include 3 females and a male, while a child is hospitalized with serious injuries. Police arrested a 20-year-old suspect and called the attack a premeditated hate crime. The police said they charged the suspect with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called it horrific and despicable. In a tweet, Trudeau said Islamophobia has no place in Canada and vowed to use every tool to combat the menace. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan condemned the attack, calling it an act of terrorism. He called on the international community to holistically counter this growing Islamophobia in Western countries. Now, India's death toll from COVID-19 has topped 350,000 after more than 2,100 people died overnight. But daily cases have fallen below the 100,000 mark for the first time in 66 days, with 86,000 infections. While globally the virus has claimed more than 3.7 million lives and infected 173 million people so far. More about the pandemic in this report. The transmission of new coronavirus variants and slow vaccine rollout due to shortages and shipment delays are harming global efforts against COVID-19. The World Health Organization says African countries are looking down the barrel of a third wave with the supply of vaccines halted. India has now detected a new variant that is likely to cause severe symptoms. The country's immunization drive is also struggling to keep pace with demand. The World Health Organization says vaccine inequity has created a two-track pandemic for the rich and the developing world.
Increasingly, we see a two-track pandemic. Many countries still face an extremely dangerous situation, while some of those with the highest vaccination rates are starting to talk about ending restrictions.
Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal says a U.S. report on the origins of the virus blames a lab in Wuhan for leaking the virus. But Beijing has told Washington to stop slandering China.
Tracing the origin of the virus is a scientific matter that should be studied by scientists worldwide in collaboration, rather than be politicized. WHO experts have reached clear conclusions on this already. China has twice invited WHO experts in for origin study in an open and transparent manner. The WHO released the report of the WHO-China joint study of the origins in March, compiled in line with WHO procedures and following science-based methods. It was an authoritative and scientific report.
Elsewhere in Asia, after months of lag, South Korea's vaccination drive has finally picked up speed. The daily new virus cases, however, remained in the 400s for the second straight day. Over in Japan, a top virologist and government advisor has warned of the risks of transmission of coronavirus infections during the Tokyo Olympics. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 53 more coronavirus-related deaths in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll is approaching 21,400. The ministry reported nearly 1,400 infections overnight. The number of confirmed cases has surpassed 935,000, with over 867,000 recoveries. There are over 46,000 active cases in the country at present. Nearly 3,200 of them are critical. The countrywide positivity rate has dropped to 2.94%. Still in Pakistan now, the death toll from the collision of two passenger trains in Sindh province has risen to at least 63. Over 100 people were injured when a passenger train smashed into derailed carriages of another train near Ghotki city. The rescue operation is still underway at the crash site. The authorities have cleared the track hours after the deadly collision took place. Army ranger troops as well as military doctors and paramedics are participating in the rescue operation. Meanwhile, an investigation committee has been formed to probe into the accident. Moving on now, Iran has warned that the recent unconstructive approach of the UN nuclear watchdog can harm ties. This comes after the IAEA chief Rafael Grossi said Iran must explain the uranium detected at its site. Speaking to the media, Iran's envoy Kazim Gharibabadi said there is no consistency between the report and the history of relations. He said Grossi's recent position reflects the nuclear monitoring body's unilateral attitude towards Iran. The envoy said the body must remain far from any political agenda and pick a clear stance on Israel's nuclear threat. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also warned that Iran's nuclear program is progressing rapidly. Now, the Israeli occupying forces have demolished dozens of Palestinian homes in the occupied West Bank. Witnesses say the army destroyed an entire Palestinian neighborhood in the Al-Mu'arajat region east of Ramallah. Meanwhile, illegal Israeli settlers accompanied by occupying troops also razed a historic neighborhood near the Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron. Palestinian media said the settlers bulldozed 400 square meters of construction near the mosque. Meanwhile, Israeli troops also arrested at least 17 Palestinians from their homes in several parts of the occupied West Bank. President Joe Biden has reaffirmed the U.S.'s support to Ukraine ahead of his summit with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin later this month. Biden was speaking with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in a phone call. At a White House briefing, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Biden reassured Zelensky that the U.S. will stand up firmly for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Sullivan said Biden looks forward to welcoming the Ukrainian president to the White House this summer. He termed the upcoming summit the most effective way to manage the differences between the U.S. and Russia. This comes after Kyiv raised concerns about Biden's meeting with Putin in Geneva on 16th of June. Moving on now, the Southeast Asian nations have called on Myanmar's junta to start an agreed political dialogue. China is hosting foreign ministers from the 10 ASEAN countries. They urged the military to free prisoners and uttered disappointment at the slow progress so far. In a summary of remarks read at the meeting, the Malaysian foreign minister said ASEAN must act more quickly. Myanmar's junta has shown little sign of heeding a consensus reached in April among the 10 ASEAN countries. It calls for an end to violence, political talks and the naming of a regional special envoy. The U.S. has expressed doubts if Iran wants to come back into compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told reporters that Iran's nuclear program is progressing rapidly. Responding, Iran's foreign minister said Iran is in full compliance with the deal, but he said it remains unclear if the U.S. is ready to leave the policy of maximum pressure on Iran. The two countries have been engaged in indirect talks aimed at reviving the deal for the past 2 months. However, sticking points remain for both sides to resume compliance. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back now. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu has met his French counterpart in Paris to discuss bilateral ties. In a tweet, Cavusoglu said Turkey aims to strengthen relations with France based on mutual respect. The duo also exchanged views on current regional issues and international developments. Earlier in an article for a French daily, Cavusoglu said Paris and Ankara will continue to enjoy friendly ties despite past tensions. He wrote that recent contacts between the leaders have both improved relations. Ankara has traded barbs with Paris over its policies on Syria, Libya and the Eastern Mediterranean. The US says it has recovered part of the ransom paid in the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack last month. The pipeline paid nearly $5 million to regain access after the hack disrupted supplies, causing fuel shortages. The Justice Department says investigators seized 63.7 bitcoins worth around $2.3 million. According to an affidavit filed, the FBI gained possession of a private key to unlock a Bitcoin wallet that received most of the funds. Talking to reporters, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said Washington turned the tables on the hackers.
Look, the message we are sending today is that if you come forward and work with law enforcement, we may be able to take the type of action that we took today to deprive the criminal actors of what they're going after here, which is the proceeds of their criminal scheme. We cannot guarantee, and we may not be able to do this in every instance.
Now, U.S. regulators have approved the first new treatment for Alzheimer's disease in nearly 2 decades. Instead of focusing on symptoms, the drug aducanumab targets the underlying cause of the disease. It aims to remove deposits of a protein called the amyloid beta from the brains of patients in earlier stages of the disease. Patient advocates and neurologists have welcomed the news of a new therapy for the condition. But scientists are divided over its potential impact because of uncertainty over the trial results. Over 30 million people around the world are thought to have Alzheimer's, with most aged over 65. World Oceans Day is being observed to raise awareness about the impact of human activity on marine life. It is an effort to mobilize people for a project for the sustainable management of the oceans.
The UN says 1 in 10 people rely on the fishing industry to make a living. However, 30% of fishing waters are overfished. So the world body has set this year's theme for the day as the ocean life and livelihoods. In a message, it said everyone needs to play their role, be it from eating local, sustainably sourced fish to stopping plastic pollution. Pakistan's Naval Chief Admiral Mohammad Amjad Khan Niazi has released a message on the occasion. He said Pakistan Navy has taken key steps to promote the safety and sustainability of ocean resources. Some of these initiatives include beach cleaning, construction of harbour debris collection barges, and banning fishing nets.
Royal frocks, including the wedding dress of late Princess of Wales Diana, are on display in London. Details in the report.
The voluminous ivory dress Princess Diana wore at her marriage in 1981 has gone on display in London. The bodice gown, having a 25-foot train, has been loaned from her sons, Princes William and Harry.
Diana, Princess of Wales's wedding dress has been very generously lent to us by the Duke of Cambridge and the Duke of Sussex. It has been seen before, but this is the first time in 25 years that it's been shown at Diana, Princess of Wales's former home at Kensington Palace.
The Royal Style in the Making show focuses on the work of designers who dressed not just Diana, but also Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother. Other items on show include a rare surviving toil for a gown worn by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, for King George VI's coronation in 1937.
Perhaps one of my favourite exhibits in the exhibition is a Georgian-style dress created for Princess Margaret. She wore it to a costume ball at the Mansion House in 1964 in aid of one of her favourite charities, the St John Ambulance. It was designed by her uncle by marriage, Oliver Messel, the greatest theatrical designer of the 20th century.
The exhibition, which runs until January, is at Kensington Palace, where Diana lived until she died in 1997.
Now, Asia-Pacific stocks have declined after a promising start to the day's trading. Investors took a step back after the release of Japan's revised first-quarter gross domestic product figures. Mainland Chinese shares are leading the losses, falling over 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, Japan's Nikkei 225 and Seoul's Kospi have also slipped marginally. However, the ASX 200 in Australia has edged up. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.